To make money online, you can sell services, build an agency, or create an e-commerce brand. Or you could just start selling a spreadsheet to thousands of people and make $3 million a year. Sounds like a weird business model, but it's exactly what this guy did with a project called Nomad List. Nomad List is a crowdsourced database of cities for remote workers and digital nomads, and it allows you to filter through a huge database to find the best prices, weather, internet speed, or even the air quality around the world. It was created in 2014 by Pieter Levels, and since then it has grown to $700,000 in annual recurring revenue. Nomad List and the ecosystem of businesses surrounding it is of course now more complex than a simple spreadsheet, but it began as something very modest. Peter just shared a Google Sheet on the internet and left it public for other people to add their own data to it. Luckily for him, it ended up becoming viral. Apart from filling all the data, people started adding columns for different indicators like level of safety, coffee shop density, and LGBTQ friendliness. And Peter was able to build the first version of Nomad List from all the data he crowdsourced and launch a proper minimal viable version of his product in less than a month. After getting some initial traction, Peter started to monetize Nomad List and grew it by himself. Nearly a decade later, he had ended up creating a business empire around traveling and remote work by building the biggest remote job board in the world. And he recently launched an immigration as a service company, which also seems promising. But getting this far wasn't easy, and Peter's first challenge was to grow Nomad List completely from scratch. It's hard to grow a business of one. As a founder or marketer, you are faced with uncertainty every day and often lack resources like time and money when bootstrapping a project. It can be frustrating to see competitors raise funds and have big teams, but if you want to build a successful bootstrap business, you have to play a different game that favors you and that transforms your situation into an advantage. As Seth Godin wrote in the Bootstrapper Bible, "As a bootstrapper, my secret weapon is knowing how to cut through bureaucracy. My size makes me faster and more nimble than any company could ever be." This is exactly the approach Peter had. He managed to get around the lack of resources by focusing on two things: speed, by launching Nomad List quickly to see if it would get traction, and thus reducing the uncertainty around the success of the project. And simplicity, by overcoming the lack of resources by building a very simple solution without even using code at first. But another ingredient to his success was the sheer volume of projects he shipped. Nomad List was not the only product he launched in 2014. During this year, he actually decided to launch 12 startups in 12 months to be able to live from a new business quickly, as he was starting to run out of money.
I did this, I was all over Asia, and the problem was my YouTube was going like bankrupt. Like it was $3,000, $2,000, but then suddenly it was like $900 and then $700 and then $500. I was like, I need to make some money or I'm not going to be able to pay this travel and just my rent and stuff. So I needed to figure out something to do.
The point of doing such challenge is that it helps you confront multiple ideas to their target market quickly. And if some of the projects you launch get traction, you can focus on them in the long run. He ended up launching 8 in total that year. He first tested 5 project ideas he had, and once Nomad List got traction, he focused on it and launched other products that had synergies with it. He then focused on growing and monetizing the projects that had some traction. But the interesting thing is that Peter decided to mostly remain a solo founder and avoid raising funds when other people would have hired to scale their business. Clearly, this approach has some unique advantages, but choosing to remain small by growing a company of one also has some drawbacks, and you have to overcome them to build a successful business. For Paul Jarvis, author of Company of One, successful solo businesses follow 5 characteristics: speed, simplicity, resilience, autonomy, and control. A company of one might not be the best solution to change the world, but it might be a great way to change yours first before you take on bigger challenges. A few years after launching Nomad List, Peter was interviewed on Indie Hackers, and his approach was still the same as when he started. He said that he mostly tries to ignore competition, and that because he works almost 100% alone, he ends up being faster than big teams when it comes to shipping new products and features. Also, he is keeping his tech stack simple. At some point, he was notorious for running Remote OK off of only one single PHP file. Peter was already focusing on speed and simplicity when he was doing his 12 startups in 1 year challenge. And to build up the 3 others, resilience, autonomy, and control, Peter had to be resilient, self-reliant, and keep his independence by not diluting his company equity. This allowed Nomad List to evolve quickly and become highly profitable for him. But as Nomad List grew, he had more and more work to do, so he had to aggressively focus on automating manual tasks through code. In his book, Make, he wrote that hiring is increasing the complexity of your product, business, and life. Hiring a person means you need to train and manage them and makes you liable for their income. And in many countries, a lot more than that. Humans are complex. They're also relatively slow. Robots can be simple, they're also very fast. When Pieter wrote these words, his team looked like this. And he uses code to automate tasks like getting data about cities around the world, finding the most popular cities at the moment from Tinder out of all data sources, or even creating meetups automatically in the most popular cities around the world for the Nomad List community. Automating tasks as much as possible is also something that Paul Jarvis agrees with. He recommends doing it because it allows you to compete with players who have deeper pockets and bigger teams, especially if the tasks are hard to automate. What's difficult to automate is exactly what makes your company of one great. The ability to creatively solve problems in new and unique ways, without throwing more at the problem. But Nomad List is fundamentally different from most solo businesses. While Paul Jarvis explains in his book that staying small and not focusing on growth at all costs is part of the company of one approach, Pieter seems to have found a way to grow his projects exponentially and still keeps very low overhead. We know that Nomad List brings in about $700,000 in ARR, but one of his main other projects, Remote OK, more than doubles that with over $2 million generated in the last 12 months. With all of his projects combined, he makes $3 million per year, which sets the Nomad List ecosystem apart from a typical company of one. So why are Pieter's companies making so much money with no sign of slowing down? There's clearly a missing piece of the puzzle when it comes to growing solo businesses. Let's find it out by looking at what he did differently. In the book Traction, Justin Mears recommends trying many approaches for growing a startup until one sticks. He calls this the bullseye framework, which states that you can't predict which marketing channels will work for your business and that the only way to know if one is relevant is to test it in 3 quick steps. The first step is to brainstorm what marketing channels you could focus on to promote your product. The second one is to test your ideas with cheap and short campaigns to find the most promising channels among the ones you chose. And the third one is to focus on the most successful channel and master it. Justin Mears identified 19 traction channels, which can all be useful depending on your product and market. Even if these methods can all potentially work for you, they are not all equal. Some of these compound more than others, like SEO, content marketing, engineering as marketing, and community building. Like in the world of investing, these strategies bring exponential results over time. And their main advantage over other traction channels is that they are often free, even if it takes more time and effort to get results. And Pieter mostly focused on these kinds of growth channels. Apart from a few marketing stunts like setting up offline ads next to the Apple headquarters and giving away $10,000 on Twitter, Pieter mostly focused on compounding growth strategies when promoting his projects. Here are a few examples. Remember the massive amount of filters on the website? Well, each filter selection or combination generates a specific URL which is indexed by search engines. This is great for long-tail SEO because it allows Pieter to generate hundreds of articles with little to no effort. Pieter is famous for popularizing the building in public movement in the startup world. He shares everything he does with his projects on Twitter, and the financial results of his companies are public. Thanks to the data from his projects, he can also create content around remote work to promote his companies, which helps grow his bigger business, Remote OK. With all the data he got from Nomad List, Pieter was able to create multiple tools to travel better, or he just built fun tools like Hood Maps, which allows people to leave comments in every big city in the world. The comments are pretty hilarious. These tools have become great marketing assets that make the Nomad List ecosystem even more valuable. By focusing on marketing strategies with low overhead like these, Pieter was able to build a marketing flywheel which has been growing his projects exponentially since 2014. But is this still possible nowadays? After all these praises about the approach Pieter had with Nomad List, you might think that it's cool that he was able to grow it like that. But we're not in 2014 anymore. The internet has changed and is too crowded to launch a spreadsheet and become a millionaire. And it's true, you're not very likely to become a millionaire from a simple spreadsheet, but you can still launch simple versions of your product ideas. If you're providing a solution that resonates with people's problems and they're willing to pay for it, then you can build a solid company and an ecosystem of products around it. I made a framework that you can use to know if you are solving such problems. When thinking of a new project, it can help to focus on solving a problem that is pure. A pure problem is painful, which makes the solution more valuable, urgent, which makes people take action quicker, recognized by people you want to buy your product. If you see friends, colleagues, or people online complaining about it, it's a good sign. And they also have to be easy to solve by you specifically, thanks to an unfair advantage you have. But like Pieter, you cannot be 100% sure that your ideas are going to work. So testing them out first is essential to know if you are solving a meaningful problem with your product. You have to test it, because startups and internet projects in general, such as SaaS businesses, online courses, or even videos like this one, are part of the stochastic world. In opposition to the predictable world, the stochastic world is random and follows different rules. For example, becoming a doctor would be part of the predictable world, because the path to becoming one is clearly defined. Whereas starting a business or a YouTube channel is part of the stochastic world, because you cannot predict very accurately your results when starting it, and your success is not correlated to how much time and effort you spend to get these results. Pieter Levels' story might be impressive because he earns a lot of money for a solo founder, but to get there he had to launch a lot of projects, and only a few got traction. He actually launched 70 projects, and 4 of them got traction. Doing this is interesting because by building in public on social media, each project leads to more attention for his past and future projects, even if the current one is going to fail. And he's not the only one who's leveraged this approach to build successful projects. Josh Pickford launched more than 60 projects, including the successful SaaS Baremetrics. Alex West released 19 projects before getting traction with his current one, Cyberleads. John Jungkook also did the 12 startups in 12 months challenge like Pieter and launched Bannerbear. Or Daniel Vassallo, who is creating what he calls small bets and helping people do the same. And that last guy actually came up with an interesting insight to keep in mind when creating in the stochastic world. He wrote that we should treat projects like cattle, not like pets. This resonated with me particularly because when I launched my first businesses in high school and college, I was very emotionally attached to them, which led me to feeling bad about myself when they eventually did not work out. But something clicked when, a few years later, I built and launched in 3 days with no real expectations a project called Notion Tools, a database of Notion-related tools and templates. This project got some SEO traction and is now generating a bit of money every month. It's a negligible amount, but it's a small win nonetheless, on which I can build upon. And I'm going to ship more of these small projects as well as MVPs of some SaaS ideas I have during the next months. Before I finish this video, I wanted to look at what you can do right now if you want to launch a software business. The first one is to write around 20 ideas of pure problems that you think you can solve. The second one is to launch the simplest version of the idea that you find most promising as quickly as possible. Creating SaaS MVPs quickly is possible and easier now more than ever thanks to SaaS boilerplates like DevJoy, and there are also no-code tools like Webflow, Airtable or Zapier, which can also save you a lot of time. If your launch does well and people are paying for your product, you can focus on it and build the more solid version. And if it doesn't work out, you still have 19 more ideas to go. When you find an idea that has traction, you can delegate the few things you don't like, but still remain nimble to grow your business quickly. I created 2 SaaS-related Notion templates for myself and clients, and I wanted to share them with you, no strings attached. You can check them out in the description. Okay, so this was the first real video of software growth. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.